Pokemon Red and Blue. The original Pokemon games released in 1998. These games kickstarted the wildly successful Pokemon series and popularized, but did not invent, the monster training genre. It's technically slightly incorrect to say that these games were the original Pokemon games. The international Red and Blue versions are effectively graphical updates of the 1996 Pokemon Red and Green that were released only in Japan. But other than graphics and some bug fixes, Red and Blue are identical to Red and Green in terms of gameplay, except for a redesigned final dungeon. Also of note before I get into the main review is Japanese Blue version. Japanese Blue is effectively the only mainline Pokemon game that has never been officially released outside of Japan. It is identical to Red and Green, except it has the improved graphics and bug fixes that were later put in the international Red and Blue versions. And it has a unique set of unavailable Pokemon, and Pokemon are in different locations. While these games are well known for their multiplayer and trading capabilities, I will be reviewing them as single-player RPGs. While trading or glitches are required for 100% completion, very few people try to do that with these games, instead enjoying the story and gameplay. So speaking of the story, let's talk about it. The game opens with Professor Oak briefly explaining what Pokemon are, and asking for your name and the name of your rival, his grandson. Later games give these characters the canonical names Red and Blue. The actual game portion of the game starts with you in your room. Walking down the stairs and then outside reveals that you are in Pallet Town, and upon trying to leave the town, you're stopped by Professor Oak and brought to his lab. Once you are there, he gives you and your rival a Pokemon. After a short fetch quest, you return to the lab and are given a Pokédex and told to go and fill it up as much as possible. And with that, you are sent on your way with very little guidance. From here on, the plot is relatively simple. You learn about the Pokemon League and try to complete it by obtaining 8 badges by beating 8 gyms. On your way to completing the 8 gyms in the Pokemon League, you also coincidentally encounter the evil Team Rocket 4 times and have to stop their ambiguous evil plans. You are also occasionally stopped by your rival and have to battle him to keep going. Once you've obtained the 8 badges, you go through Victory Road and reach the Indigo Plateau, home of the Elite Four, the 4 strongest trainers in the land. After beating them, their leader, Lance, surprises you by saying that you have one last challenge. Your rival has beaten them before you and is now the Pokemon champion. Your final challenge is to beat your rival one last time. And that's about it as far as plot goes. Compared to later Pokemon games or to other RPGs, it's very bare bones. And honestly, I like it that way. It puts way more emphasis on the game mechanics, specifically the Pokemon collecting. And in this game, you don't need as much direction as in other RPGs, because the map structure makes it so that most of the time there's only 2 ways to go, forwards or backwards. The game mechanics in Pokemon Red and Blue are pretty simple on the surface. You have up to 6 Pokemon that can each have up to 4 moves. In battle, you send 1 Pokemon out at a time to fight trainers or wild Pokemon that are subject to the exact same restraints. Pokemon learn new moves by leveling up or by using items called TMs. Pokemon have 5 stats: HP, Attack, Defense, Speed, and Special. What each of these do is pretty self-explanatory, except for the Special stat. The Special stat is the same as Attack and Defense, except it is used for special moves, which is something that I will explain later. Stats increase when you level up, based on all sorts of hidden numbers that are far more complex than I'd like to get into in this video. Extremely basically though, Pokemon gain more stats the more Pokemon they beat. That means that a Pokemon that you trained from level 5 to level 30 is likely going to have higher stats than the same Pokemon caught at level 30. I say likely because there's another set of hidden values that help determine stats that you can't increase, and if you're unlucky, you'll catch a bad Pokemon and not know about it until way later, if ever. Each Pokemon also has 1 or 2 types from a list of 15 types. These types are normal, fighting, flying, poison, ground, rock, bug, ghost, fire, water, grass, electric, psychic, ice, and dragon. Types do 2 things. The first and most obvious one it determines is what attack types they are weak to and resistant to. Pokemon with 2 types combine the weaknesses and resistance from both of their types. So a ground type like Sandshrew would take half damage from poison and rock, be immune to electric, and take double damage from grass, water, and ice. While a ground rock type, like Geodude, would gain resistance to normal, flying, and rock damage, gain weaknesses to fighting and ground, and its resistance to poison would double, but its weaknesses to water and grass would also double. There's a glitch in these games where dual-type Pokemon will display incorrect messages for what moves are super effective or not very effective. However, actual damage calculation is not affected by this glitch. The other thing that types do is give the Pokemon same type attack bonus, or stab. When using a move that shares its type with the user, the move's damage is multiplied by 1.5. Unlike Pokemon, moves only have a single type, so Stab cannot be gained multiple times. However, Pokemon with 2 types do gain Stab for both types. There's one more primary thing about types. They're categorized into special and physical types. The physical types are normal, fighting, flying, poison, ground rock, bug, and ghost, and the special types are fire, water, grass, electric, psychic, ice, and dragon. When a damaging move is used, the damage calculation uses the attacking Pokemon's attack stat for physical type moves and their special stat for special type moves. For the defending Pokemon, it uses their defense for physical moves and their special for special moves. That is a minor balance problem with these games. While attack and defense are separate stats, special is used for both attacking and defending. This means that anything with a high special is good at attacking with it and defending from them, while high attack Pokemon can still be weak to physical attacks. They do try to balance it a bit by having the highest special Pokemon have low defense, but there are a few that have special and defense both being high. Starting with the Generation 2 Pokemon games Gold and Silver, this problem was fixed by splitting the special stat into special attack and special defense. And starting in Diamond and Pearl, what moves were physical and which were special are determined individually for each move instead of being based on type. I think the physical special issue is one of the worst aspects of this game's battle system. It was much improved in Gold and Silver when they split special in two, but I think that Diamond and Pearl version is what this series should have had from the beginning. There are moves like Fire Punch that you would assume are physical, but instead are special, and as far as I can tell, which types are special isn't explained anywhere in game, nor is Stab. Maybe an NPC somewhere says something about these mechanics, but I couldn't find that out on the internet, and I'm not going to talk to every single NPC in the game just to try and figure that minor detail out. And while I did say that the physical and special types is the worst thing about the battle system, it is tolerable or even fun if you know how it works. But if I was playing this for the first time, I would not be able to figure out how the system works without a ton of experimentation. I have another similar complaint about the game not telling you how things work, but is even more important than just physical and special moves. The game does not tell you what moves do or how powerful they are, not when you're learning them and not on the stat screen. That means you can easily override a move with a far worse move without realizing what you're doing. This isn't so much a problem nowadays when you can look up what moves do on sites like Serebii and Bulbapedia, but when they were released in 1998, none of that information was available. The layout of the world your journey takes place in is fairly simple. There are 10 towns in the Indigo Plateau, home of the Pokemon League. Connecting these locations are 25 numbered routes. Routes are rather simple straight lines for the most part, filled with trainers and grass, though some routes can be a bit maze-like at certain points. Walking through the grass can trigger wild battles where you can catch Pokemon. Routes often have dungeons in the middle of them in the form of forests or caves. Most towns have a Pokemon Center, where you heal your Pokemon and swap your Pokemon out at the PC, a Pokemart where you purchase items, and a gym, where you fight a gym leader and their trainers to gain a badge. Gym leaders function as the primary bosses of the game. Towns have other buildings and houses where you can get items and bits of fluff dialogue from NPCs. Pallet Town and Lavender Town are the only towns without gyms. Pallet Town functions as the starting town where you begin the game, and also has no Pokemon Center or Mart, though your mother will heal your Pokemon for you. At the beginning of the game, you're offered one of 3 starter Pokemon, Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle. Your choice also affects what Pokemon and later party your rival has. The starters are all pretty equal as far as stats and usefulness go. However, Bulbasaur has the least varied moveset of the 3, and Charmander will make the beginning of the game harder. These games have a whopping 151 Pokemon available, but only 81 of them are fully evolved. This means that when constructing your party you only need to consider 81 Pokemon instead of 151, and you catch the pre-evolved forms of the ones you want before you evolve them. I initially was going to cover every single Pokemon in the game and give my recommendations. However, that slowly turned my script into a bloated mess. Instead, I'll just give some decent advice. If you want to make the game easy, start with Squirtle and catch a Nidoran west of Viridian City. Evolve that Nidoran into a Nidorino, or a Nidorino, and then as soon as you get a Moonstone, evolve it again into a Nidoking or Nidoqueen. Then teach it some of the most powerful TMs in the game. Then catch a Psychic type and you'll have quite the strong party, with 3 leftover slots for HM users or your favorite Pokemon. If you want to make the game hard, Release your starter immediately and use exclusively bug types. In general, Pokemon available after you get through Mount Moon are stronger than the ones before it, with the notable exception of Nidoran and your starter. Other notable Pokemon include all of Eevee's evolutions, which can quickly fill a missing type in your party, since you get Eevee at level 25, and the evolution stones can be bought in the same town. Despite my advice though, you can use whatever Pokemon you like. However, be mindful that picking weaker Pokemon means that you will need to grind more than using stronger Pokemon. These games introduced legendary Pokemon. Legendary Pokemon are Pokemon with extremely high stats and can only be found once each. The 4 legendaries in these games are Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, and Mewtwo. Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres make up a trio of Pokemon called the Legendary Birds. All of them are dual-type Pokemon that are respectively Ice, Electric, and Fire, with their other type being Flying for all of them. They are all caught at level 50, they all have decent level-up movesets, though they can only learn 5 moves from level up, and they all have decent TM sets. And honestly, there's not much else to say about them. They all have very high stats, so if you choose to use them, you'll have a pretty easy time with the game after you catch them. Mewtwo is the strongest Pokemon in the game by far. It has the highest stats in the game, and it is also the incredibly powerful Psychic type. In addition, it can learn an extremely large number of TMs, including moves like Ice Beam, Blizzard, Thunderbolt, and Fire Blast, along with knowing things like Psychic and Recover from its level up. However, he is unavailable until after you've beaten the champion, and is at the end of the post-game dungeon, so you are unable to make your game incredibly easy by catching him. Using him in multiplayer will get you called cheap unless your opponent is also using him, so even when these were the current Pokemon games, he was effectively a bragging rights reward. There is one other legendary Pokemon besides those 4, or rather a mythical Pokemon, Mew. It is a Psychic-type Pokemon, has good stats, and can learn every single TM and HM. It is unobtainable in the games except through special events in the real world, and this may surprise you, but there aren't any special events going on for a 23-year-old Game Boy game. Actually, there is one way to get Mew extremely easily, and is still possible, and that is through glitches. Since Mew is event-only, I consider this glitch to be free game and to not count as cheating. The earliest point you can do it is in Cerulean. You catch an Abra north of Cerulean, then you come over to this trainer on the west side of the same route. You walk down to make him appear on screen and see you, and you pause exactly at that moment. Then you teleport to the Cerulean Pokemon Center. Then you fight Misty's first gym trainer. Then you return to Nugget Bridge, and once you are there, there is a level 7 Mew that will appear, and then you can try and catch it. If you choose to use this Mew, it will likely be your best Pokemon for similar reasons as Mewtwo. Or you can give it Cut, Fly, Surf, and Strength, so that you don't need to put those moves on other Pokemon and can free up the construction of the rest of your party. Personally, I don't typically use legendary Pokemon in my playthroughs of Pokemon games. I feel they make it too easy, and I also don't feel like I earn the victories I get from them like I do with the Pokemon I trained myself. As mentioned previously, the game's primary bosses are in the form of gym leaders. They are in buildings known as gyms. Gyms are usually arranged in a way where you have to battle one or more trainers before you get to the leader, but you can always leave to heal before you fight the gym leader, so the trainers are mostly there to make sure your party is up to snuff before you challenge the leader. Every one of the 8 gym leaders specializes in a specific type of Pokemon. That means the strategy for beating them is nearly identical for every gym leader. You get a Pokemon of a type that is strong against them, usually located conveniently nearby, and use that to take them out. The exceptions to this strategy are Brock and Sabrina. With Brock, you're fine if you picked Squirtle or Bulbasaur, but picking Charmander means that you'll be unable to deal super effective damage to him unless you level up a Nidoran to level 43. However, you can still deal with him with either Ember or Butterfree's Confusion attack due to Geodude and Onix's pathetic special stat, so you won't need to grind that far at the very beginning of the game. Sabrina uses Psychic types, which have no weaknesses besides Bug, which has no good moves to use. Use your own Psychic type or a fast physical attacker to beat her. Most Pokemon moves are only usable in battle. However, there are several that have uses in the Overworld as well. 5 of these moves are HM moves, and are required for beating the game. The HMs are Cut, Fly, Surf, Strength, and Flash, respectively HM 1 through 5. HMs are a lot like TMs. They are items that you use to teach your Pokemon a specific move. However, unlike TMs, you can use HMs as many times as you want. though once a Pokemon learns an HM, you can't override it with another move. Cut is the first HM you receive, and you obtain it from the captain of the SSN docked in Vermilion City. If you've beaten Misty, you can use it to cut down small trees. This is only required 3 times in the game, once to get into the Vermilion Gym, once to access the route east of Cerulean, and once to get into the Celadon Gym. There are also a large number of other cut trees that function as shortcuts or to block off items. Cut can also be used to cut down tall grass, making it a very slow option to avoid random encounters if you're running low on HP. As an in-battle attack, Cut is very bad. It has low power, is normal type, and has 95 accuracy instead of the much more common 100. Cut is not worth keeping around the entire game because of this, so I recommend giving it to some Pokemon you don't plan on using, and permanently putting it in the PC after you beat the Celadon Gym. HM2 is Fly, which is an optional HM you can receive west of Celadon on Route 16. After you've beaten Lieutenant Surge, using it in the Overworld lets you fly to a Pokemon Center in any city you've previously visited, which makes it very useful for getting to specific locations quickly. In battle, it is a decent move. While it is a 2-turn move, during the first turn the Pokemon is immune to most attacks. It has a decent amount of power, with the only stronger flying moves being Drill Peck, which is restricted to Fearow, Dodrio, and Zapdos, and Sky Attack, a 2-turn move that isn't immune to attacks on the first turn. HM3 is Surf, which is by far the best HM. It is found in the Safari Zone, and after beating Koga you can use it to move through water to access locations that were previously cut off. In battle, it is an extremely powerful water-type attack, with the only more powerful water moves being Crabhammer and Hydro Pump, both of which have lower accuracy, and Crabhammer being restricted to Kingler. HM4 is Strength, which you receive from the Safari Warden after finding his teeth. Once you've beaten Erica, it is usable outside of battle to push around boulders. Boulders only appear in 3 locations, the Seafoam Islands, Victory Road, and a single one in the Safari Warden's house. In battle, Strength is an okay move. It is the second strongest normal move that has no drawbacks, after Body Slam, and tied with Tri-Attack. The stronger normal moves' drawbacks are typically just recoil damage or low accuracy, which means that sometimes you may wish you had one of those moves or Body Slam instead of Strength. HM5 is Flash, quite possibly the worst HM. It is used to brighten up Rock Tunnel, and that is all it does. In battle, it lowers the opponent's accuracy, which is an okay effect, but Double Team is better because it raises your evasion, which has the same end result, but is better because the effects don't go away when the opponent switches Pokemon. I recommend treating this move a lot like Cut and only having it on a Pokemon you don't plan on using. Getting it is convoluted and easily missable too. You have to go through Diglett's Cave back to Route 2, go into a building on that route that you couldn't enter the first time you were here because the building and cave are behind some small trees, and then talk to an NPC that turns out to be Professor Oak's aide. He gives you Flash if you've caught 10 kinds of Pokemon. You technically don't need to get this HM, because you can still get through Rock Tunnel without it, but it sure does make it easier. You also have to beat Brock before you can use it, though you can't obtain it without first beating him anyway. There are more moves that work in the Overworld as well, but they don't require beating gym leaders to use them. These moves are Dig, Teleport, and Soft Boiled. All 3 of them are available as TMs, with Dig and Teleport being able to be learned by mini Pokemon, but Soft Boiled is only learnable by Chansey and Mew. Dig allows for the player to escape caves and other dungeons, such as gyms and Silphco, and return to the last used Pokemon Center by simply using it. This is incredibly useful, especially if the only reason you were in a dungeon was to catch a specific Pokemon. In battle, Dig is an extremely powerful Ground-type move, and since the TM is incredibly easy to get, there's very little reason not to use it. Teleport simply returns you to the last used Pokemon Center when you use it. It's a nice ability, but once you obtain Fly, you'll no longer need it. Add in that the in-battle use of Teleport is to escape wild battles instantly, and it's a move you'll probably want to get rid of after you get Fly. Soft Boiled transfers 20% of the user's HP to another Pokemon, making it an alternative to using potions outside of battle. In battle, it heals the user by 50% of their HP. It's probably worth using if you're using Chansey, although I never have. 4 times in the game you have to deal with Team Rocket, an evil Yakuza XP that is very on the nose about being evil. The first time is in Mount Moon, where they plan on beating a guy up and stealing his fossils. You beat the Team Rocket grunts, and then you beat up the fossil guy yourself and take one of his fossils. The second time you meet Team Rocket is in Celadon City, specifically in their hideout under the Game Corner, implying that they also deal in gambling. This time you meet Giovanni, their leader, who uses some very powerful Pokemon. After beating him, you get the Self Scope, which lets you beat the ghosts in Lavender Town's Pokemon Tower. When you get to the top of Pokemon Tower, you find several Team Rocket grunts who are there to catch Cubones for their skulls. After beating them, Mr. Fuji, who they had taken hostage, gives you the Pokeflute, which can wake up the 2 Snorlax that were blocking you from getting to Fuchsia City. After this, you go to Saffron City. If you had been here earlier, you may have noticed that there are Team Rocket guards in front of the Silphco building and Sabrina's gym. After you rescue Mr. Fuji and come back, the one in front of Silphco has fallen asleep and you can get into the building. You find that Team Rocket has taken everyone in the building hostage. After getting through the extremely complex facility, you again challenge Giovanni. Beating him gets you thanked by the Sylph President and given the Master Ball. You do encounter Giovanni one last time, but not the rest of Team Rocket. It turns out that he is the gym leader of Viridian City, where you had previously had to skip his gym because it was locked. Beating him here and then talking to him again has him say, "Having lost, I cannot face my underlings. Team Rocket is finished forever. I will dedicate my life to the study of Pokemon. Let us meet again someday. Farewell." And then he vanishes. They are pretty one-note, borderline parody villains. But more interestingly is that the only reason the protagonist seems to deal with them is because they're in the way, not out of any sense of justice. Or possibly out of revenge for them attempting to attack him in Mount Moon. Your rival is the trainer that you'll be encountering the most throughout the game, with a grand total of 8 battles. Throughout the game, he always seems to be slightly ahead of you in his journey, and will usually make fun of you for this fact. He starts with whichever starter has a type advantage to your own, and slowly builds a party through the game. By the end, his party is extremely varied, and if you don't have a varied party of your own to counter it, you may have a hard time with the champion fight. The Pokemon League is the final challenge of the game, and consists of 5 battles that you have to fight all in a row, without being able to return to a Pokemon Center between them, though you can use healing items in between. If you lose against any of them, you'll have to restart from the beginning. The first 4 battles are against the Elite Four. The Elite Four are a lot like gym leaders, however instead of having one type specialty, they have 2 apiece. Lorelei focuses on Ice and Water, Bruno on Fighting and Rock, Agatha on Ghost and Poison, and Lance on Dragon and Flying. After that, you fight your rival, as previously mentioned, as the game's final boss. This means that you need to make sure your party can handle not only your rival's Pokemon, but also the Pokemon the Elite Four, if you want to beat the Pokemon League. After you beat the Pokemon League, Professor Oak shows up to chastise his grandson and congratulate you. You then register your Pokemon in the Hall of Fame and the credits roll. There are still things to do after the credits though, specifically 3 optional dungeons, 2 of which are available as soon as you have Surf, and the third only available after you become champion. The first 2 are the Seafoam Islands and the Power Plant. The Seafoam Islands are home to Ice-type Pokemon, confusing strength puzzles, and the legendary bird Articuno. The Power Plant is a maze full of electric types, Voltorbs pretending to be items, and the legendary bird Zapdos. The Seafoam Islands may seem at first look to be a required dungeon, since it splits Route 20 in half. However, you can easily just fly to Pallet Town and surf south to Cinnabar Island, instead of surfing there from Fuchsia. If you're wondering where Moltres is, it's actually in a required dungeon, Victory Road. However, you don't need to encounter it to get through the dungeon. The final optional dungeon is the Cerulean Cave. A man stands in front of its entrance until after you beat the champion, and you'll understand why once you go inside. It is home to the strongest wild Pokemon in the game, and is structured as an incredibly confusing maze. Once you reach the end of that maze, you encounter Mewtwo, the strongest Pokemon in the game. There are 2 main things that make Red and Blue different. The first and more obvious one is exclusive Pokemon. 11 Pokemon are exclusive to each game, and they consist of 1 Grass Poison 3-stage line, a Fire-type 2-stage line, 2 2-stage lines of various types, a 1-stage Bug type, and another 1-stage Pokemon for each game. You can see how they line up pretty well in comparison between the versions. My personal preference is for Blue's exclusives, Mankey and Primate being the only Red exclusive I miss when playing Blue. And I honestly think Blue gets the better deal in terms of power of exclusives. Ninetales and Arcanine are very similar, but I think that Ninetales is ever so slightly better. Sandslash is far better than Arbok, and Persian and Primeape are pretty comparable, though I do think Persian is slightly better. The remaining two Pokemon are more preference-based, though I do think Red does get a better deal on them with Scyther and Electabuzz compared to Pinsir and Magmar. The other primary difference between the games is percentage chance of encountering specific Pokemon. It's not everywhere, but where it is impactful. Red has a higher chance of encountering the male Nidoran family, while Blue has a higher chance of encountering the female. Male Nidoran is usually considered the better one of the two, so Red wins on that count. However, Blue is more likely to encounter the Caterpie family than the Weedle family. In general, Butterfree is slightly better than Beedrill because it learns Confusion at level 11, which makes the early part of the game easier. There are a few other places with similar percentage differences, but I do believe those two are the most impactful due to how close to the beginning of the game they are. Also of note is the Game Corner Pokemon prices. They are different between the two games, but most notably Porygon is far cheaper in Blue than in Red. The last thing I'd like to cover in this video is glitches, but I don't want to spend too long on them since they aren't a primary thing about the actual game when played as most people will play it. These games have a reputation for being glitch-filled messes, and honestly, they are. However, most of the big glitches you have to go out of your way to activate, like the aforementioned Mew glitch. The smaller glitches are primarily during battle, and at the end of the day won't affect your game too much. Just don't use focus energy. It actually does the opposite of what it is supposed to do. So, the final point of this video is, do I recommend Pokemon Red and Blue? Yes, kind of. If you're playing your first Pokemon game and want to do the Kanto region, you should probably play the stellar Game Boy Advance remakes of these games, Fire Red and Leaf Green. They're a lot more user-friendly and balanced than these games, while still being a mostly one-to-one remake. However, if you've played Pokemon games before, these are a very fun experience because of the limited move pools and slightly different mechanics from the newer games. It's also something you should play if you consider yourself a Pokemon fan and have never played the originals, just to see where the game started. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe to my channel, and if you want to see me play through the games that I plan on reviewing on this channel, I do also have a Twitch channel that you could also follow. Thank you again, and see you next time.